Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Silver Track Extra, where we give you the tools, tips, and tricks to improve your guard management, retain more customers, and gain the upper hand against your competitors. Here are your hosts, Chris Anderson and Johnny Page.
What's up, Silver Track Nation? Johnny Page and Chris Anderson, your dynamic duo, going at it for episode number 90 of the Silver Track Extra.
No. I was going to do the Batman theme. You're too young yet.
I know, you just did it over the intro music. Come on.
I know. Did I really? Oh.
I love the intro music. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, let's go.
It's probably still going right now.
Is it? All right.
Actually.
Let's do it.
Cricket. So we're here on episode number 90 we're going to talk about why guard management software can, in fact, ruin your business. And this is inspired by a pretty special conversation that you've recently had, Chris. And we're not here to air out anyone's dirty laundry. We just have a unique position as Chris and I work with hundreds of companies across the US, Canada, the UK, South Africa, and even New Zealand now. That's the most recent addition to our map. And we get to see how companies operate. We get to talk to a lot of operations guys, owners, business development managers, and we have this cool pulse on what are some common trends. And although 9 times out of 10, when implementing guard management software is really beneficial for a business, we're going to talk about today where, unfortunately, it was a very, let's just say, it was a fork in the road for one of our customers that has been using the software. So, Chris, why don't you just give us a little background on what's happened and kind of what played out and why maybe guard management software wasn't the best outcome or solution for this company?
Well, the great part about it, and the funny part, our title says, "Why does guard management? How can guard management software ruin your business?" It actually didn't. It actually got another client that uses our software the contract.
So in the first place, yeah. So go back, explain the whole process.
So what happened was, a guy called me up originally and said, "Hey, we need your software because I have a contract, and the customer's questioning whether we're, doing the job. There's about 4 or 5 points within the perimeter. It's it's an industrial kind of park facility, and all he wants us to do is just check these 5 access points and make sure that the gate is locked up. That's all he wants." I said, "Great." And he says, and he's really, really upset, and I think we're going to lose the contract. So I actually called the customer for him at his request, and we sat and I did a review, and I showed the customer the whole system, how the GPS and how we could do a QR code, and they'd be able to scan it, the location, and give the officer instructions. I set up the task assignments and memos to automatically hit the guard to make sure that he went and locked up the front gate and gave him instructions who he was allowed to let in at that time. I mean, it was completely dialed in. It was just a matter of just taking the phone and scanning the QR button that was sitting at the perimeter gates. Real simple.
So in short, you set this up in a way to where if the officer wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing, it'd be very easy to tell. But if he was doing what he was supposed to be doing, there would be no questioning whether or not they were performing, right?
No questioning. And The client was ready to terminate at that point, but the client said, "I will stay on. I like this." He goes, "Because I'm not saying they're not doing the work, but I need to know."
Yeah.
Right? That's where it was set up. So unfortunately, did everything possible to set them up, and they couldn't get the guards. They weren't doing the supervision. The guard didn't have a flashlight. They weren't doing the follow-up, and the guy never went to scan the QR codes. So they ended up.
So how much time passed, Chris? From that point until what? So we get a phone call, in the very
about a month
recently.
and a half. About a month and a half. Yeah, about a month and a half.
Of back and forth too, right? Of like, hey, they're not doing this, right? Your guys aren't getting on it. We checked, so you're actually doing more supervision.
I'm calling the guard. I even got the number. I'm calling the guard for the company because I had him and I was looking at it at night just to see how the guy was doing. I go, well, you know what? I'm going to call the guard and help the company out because you know how I am with my clients. I get really involved. So I'm actually calling the guard on his phone and guiding him through, walking him through. He's doing a great job, right? No problem. And then, of course, he turns and burns. The next guy comes in. I went the extra mile, John. I did everything I possibly could, but they just couldn't get the supervision to stay on top when they had a new guard there to keep on top of them. And the guards knew there was no accountability, or so they could continue doing what they're doing, and eventually it cost them the contract. But the good part is the other client of ours picked him up again because the guy loved the software.
Different guy.
Yeah, different guy. Different guy. Got it. But he was a client of ours, and the guy said, "I love the software. I know that's not the issue."
So tell me, you got a phone call, and the inspiration for the title of this episode was, the guard company, the original company that we set up, loses the contract,
right?
And you have a phone call with our main contact, our point of contact there. What was the conversation like?
He says, "You ruined my business." He says, "Everything was fine before Silvertrack came along," right? And I go, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Yeah." He goes, "Before I had this, I didn't have to, worry about it. Client never knew what we were doing, right?
Or weren't doing.
Or what we weren't doing, right?" And I go,
Yeah.
but you forget. The client was going to terminate you because he already knew that you weren't doing the job. That's why we brought the tool in to help you, and you still couldn't get your team to follow through with the tool." I said, "So how does that make sense, right?"
So the takeaway here is guard management software can ruin your business if your business relies on your customer not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
If that is your key to retention, that our officer or our customer doesn't know that our guards don't do the job. Like, I think, Chris, we've had conversations. This played out.
This is so frustrating.
There were so many events that played out over this. There was a conversation, right? Didn't the client come on property and both guards were there were two guards on the property and they were both sleeping?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like things like, so yeah, that company, guard management software, is going to ruin the business because it's going to provide full transparency. It doesn't matter if it's Silvertrack or any other tool, no matter, even if it's a Degi tool, a wand, it's going to show that the guards aren't doing their job.
And I told them today, I said, "Listen, you know what? If you don't take it to your clients, you better use it for yourself and get yourself in check so you can get your teams in check. And then what you can do, you can introduce the technology to your client. So you don't have to tell them about it. But wouldn't you like to know whether your guard's doing the job? Why do you feel you want to drive out there just to catch them in farm when you can see it online that they're not doing the job? You can supervise right here from your own computer. And then they finally realize, yeah, that's a good idea. I just don't have to give it to my clients, let them see it, but it'll be a way for me to get my business better first, and then I'll introduce it." I go, right. Yeah. There because you go. I didn't know you were screwed up.
Yeah, right. Because who wants to worry about, I wonder when that contract's going to terminate?
Yeah. What a horrible position to be in.
It's just hard to live like that, especially if your paycheck or your livelihood depends on it. As a supervisor or operations manager or owner of that company, everything's on. It's like it's got an expiration date.
Well, Silvertrack Nation, let's take a break and hear from our sponsors over at Paperless Proposal. We've all been there before. You put countless hours into a proposal, painstakingly nitpicked every last detail until you finally finish and click send. Then you spend the next several days thinking, did they get it? Did they like it? Have they even read it yet? Well, with Paperless Proposal, those worries are gone. Not only can you actually see when your prospect views your proposal, but you can see what pages they look at, how long they look at them, and who they forward the proposal to. All of these analytics help you gain valuable insight into how your prospective clients view and interact with your proposals, giving your sales team important data to close more contracts. So what are you waiting for? Head over to paperlessproposal.com/Silvertrack to get a free demo and take advantage of a special offer just for our listeners. Now, let's get back to our featured conversation.
So, of course, the title here is a little catchy of why guard management software can ruin your business, but ultimately we're talking about this is going to provide, whether it's Silvertrack or a different tool, it doesn't matter. We're talking about that it provides some transparency, especially if you turn that over to your customer. And what I really like about implementing this is that the companies that do a great job, they get recognized for it now.
Oh yeah, they do.
We love. I have conversations. I genuinely enjoy my job. I'm passionate about what we do every day when we wake up because we have customers that call us and have amazing success stories of I started out at a single property, and because of what we implemented with our service and your software combined, I now have the entire portfolio. Or I, as a small company, am able to mix it up with some of the national and global companies because I have your software, and it can prove that I'm more capable of delivering than they are because I have management processes in place that I can actually prove. Like you have another client who's going after a multi-million-dollar a contract for a group of HOAs that currently has less than 40 guards, and they've been through the huge procurement process, right? Yep. And they're one of the final two. It's them and G4S, and that doesn't happen by accident.
Sure does not. And here's another one. Another example. So the guy calls me and he says, listen, I have a bunch of properties, and my biggest problem is all the managers want all the pools locked up at 10 o'clock. My sales guy went out there and sold 10 o'clock. We can't get around and lock 20 pools at 10 o'clock. And the managers want to terminate me. So now they want this management software, and I have to do this management software. But how am I going to do it? Because they're going to see that I'm not going to be there at 10. I'm not going to be there at 10 o'clock. So here's what I told them. I said, listen, before you had the software, when you went to the pool, I said, well, first of all, let's go back. You asked the manager, why does she want it locked up at 10 o'clock? And she says, well, because I don't want to have any problems. Have you had any problems? She says, well, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but we don't want anybody in the gate after 10 o'clock. And I said, okay, that's the common speech, right? That's what everybody says. Uh-huh. All right, so here's what I told the managers. Manager, here's our software. Here's what we can do. With the ability to identify and know every resident that lives here, for an example, which we have that ability to know which resident we can download and apartment and vehicle. When we go to the pools at 10 o'clock, when we find somebody there, we can determine if, in fact, it is a resident and or visitor, right? She goes, yes. So then we can educate, and then you can have a conversation if there's a problem. But the best part about it is that what time and when are we finding these people in the pool? Do we really need to be there? Is it really Friday, Saturday, or Sunday? Is it really 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock? So now we can take our patrol time so we can really turn them to the time that they're really having the problem. So let's get the information first, right? And then just share that with your client, and then be honest with them and tell them you have other clients that want the same thing. But what you do, this is how you gather the data, and this is how you put it together. This is how you respond. But when we do get there, we'll be able to find out who it is. We'll be able to take a photograph, show you that we took the beer bottles, we put the trash away, and everything was secure, right?
Yeah.
And he says, and it wasn't a week later. He called me back and he says, when I explained it to the manager the way you told me, he goes, it was hands down. She totally understood it. It just like reopened everything for me.
Well, you're getting back to delivering the desired outcome. What do they really want? They don't want problems in the pool. They don't want residents complaining that there are people in there after hours. It was too loud. So if you can still deliver that desired outcome by hitting it at 10:20 or 11 or 12 and still accomplish the same thing, the property manager is, as long as they know you're getting there, right? Don't sell it. I'm going to be there right at 10. Say, I'm going to deliver the desired outcome and that you're not going to have problems. Let me handle what days we show up at 10 versus what days we show up at 10:15 and what days we show up at, 11 o'clock. Let me handle that. And as we're hitting our marks, why would it matter what time we actually get here, as long as we come,
Sure. And if it's problematic at those times, we'll come every night until we get it resolved, and we'll move on.
Sure. Yeah. So I think, all in all, we just wanted to come on the episode and just share basically some real life stories. It's not this isn't always rainbows and sunshine in the security industry. There's definitely things to think about, and there's a transition that happens when you implement guard management software, and they can be positive, and sometimes, like in this case, they can be negative. But either way, what it is going to cause you to do is you'll have more visibility into your operation, and that will give you the tools that you need to really improve your service. And those things are what contribute to growth.
That's right.
So you can visit silvertracksoftware.com/90 for full show notes and tons of resources for the security guard industry. This is our 90th episode, so we've got tons more information and resources. There's a full resource center with ebooks, webinars, kits, calculators, videos full of information for the security industry. So be sure to check that out and subscribe so that you get a weekly notification for all of our most recent episodes. And until next time, my name is Johnny Page.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
This was the Silver Track Extra, and we'll talk to you soon.